June, so it's been really exciting to start doing activities here for the community. Queer Tech, we've been always focused on increasing 2S LGBTQ representation in the tech industry. And we focus on 3 audiences. So you have early access to tech. So these are students and individuals who want to get into tech. So if you have any friend, who are queer and trying to get into the tech industry, we can support them in that process. We support queer people who are in tech to advance their career in tech and then fostering entrepreneurship. So the event tonight is within the fostering entrepreneurship piece. And and Queer Tech has been around. We have about 8,000 members across Canada. So there is a lot of QTs all across the country, and really exciting to see everyone. Again, thank you, BDC, for hosting us in this fabulous venue, and really excited. So quickly, Queer Tech acknowledged that today we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabes, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people. We're also acknowledged that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed by the Mississaugas of Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Again, a quick thank you to our partners for our QT Connect programs. This is our meetup series of meetups that we do. BDC is our presenting partners for this series. BDC is our partners also for this meetup series. Google Chrome, Video, Osadia, TouchTunes, Unity, Twitter, the Canadian Media Fund, Moment Factory, and Sound Life, and World Support. So if you want to keep up to date with Queer Tech, we use all social media. It's Queer Tech HQ, so you can follow us LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube also. A lot of the series that we do today are all on YouTube. So if you want to see past events that we've done or any of the interviews with different queer people, you can find them on YouTube. You also can sign up for our newsletter. We send it twice a month with a digest for all activities that are happening in the organization, and also job opportunities if you're looking for a job, especially in leadership role. We tend to showcase a lot of these roles in our newsletter. If we love what we do and you want to support Queer Tech, it's queertech.org/support. Some of you might know that we are hosting our first national hybrid conference on November 10 and 11. It's going to be in Toronto. So we're really excited. It's going to be in this building, just a few floors upstairs. So it'll be really exciting to come. The conference is really focused on the 3 tracks that we run. So we'll be running supporting different individuals, and so there'll be a lot of networking. It's a hybrid conference, as I mentioned. So if you can't make it for the 2 days, you can still join virtually. It's really great. We use a platform called Brella to encourage connection between the communities. You'll be able to browse the directory, book meetings, and with our partners if you're looking for a job, or just to connect with the community. Again, thank you for the support, and I'll call Beth to the stage. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you. We're super excited to see you, and as Nafal said, we're very excited to start exploring more content and presentations for our community in the entrepreneurial space. So really excited about the panel of speakers that we've got for you today. But before we get into the panel discussion, I wanted to bring up Mark from BDC to do just a little bit of an introduction, maybe to help set the stage and the foundation for the conversation we're going to have with our panel of experts. Some of the folks in the room, we as you know, when you RSVP, we tried to take a little bit of a read of where individuals might be in their startup or founder journey. And what we learned was pretty early on. So we're going to try and gear the conversation tonight to more early stage kind of founders and startup businesses. And so that, again, makes a lot of sense for Mark to kick us off with just a little bit of context setting. So Mark, please join us.
Yes.
Clicker. There you go. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to start by introducing myself, but first, it's my first presentation in front of real people. I'm actually taking a break. Yeah. I'm Marc Meyer. I'm the regional director for technology financing. So we have for the Ontario region, we have at BDC, we have a lot of technology companies that we fuel their growth basically. So we provide financing, we provide advisory services, and we provide capital. So we're one of the biggest players, the biggest player in the country. So today, what I'm going to talk about is really, what's available basically. And I promise I will keep it short. I know the cocktails are really good outside, so I'll keep it short. So just as I was saying, that's the only pitch I will make. That's kind of where we're at. We have one of the largest portfolios in loans and investments in the tech ecosystem, coast to coast, 4,000 companies that we directly fund. And we have over 700 VC backs. So through our different funds, that's what we touch. So what I wanted to talk about was just kind of leveling a little bit the playing field. We'll have different panelists talking about different journeys that they had. So basically what we have is different financing. So we have, when you want to start a business, and maybe before I start, just so I understand the audience, who has already a business? They offer. And who's thinking about potentially having a business in the future, being a founder? All right, a couple of people, that's good. That's why we're here. So I'll run you through some of the types of funding you can have to jumpstart your business. So obviously the most obvious is the personal investment. So that's your own money. Usually that's what we'll ask. We'll want people to kind of put skin in the game to get it started. Obviously, sweat money, it's like the hours you put in is really something that obviously you will put, but the dollar amount is really important and needs to be tracked from the get-go. Love money. So family, friends, usually we'll see some type of funding coming in there. My advice, be clear on expectations. We have some families in whom it has created issues. So be clear from the get-go on what happens if it doesn't go the right way. Business incubators, accelerators, pitch competition. There's different types of groups that are out there. Gradient Spaces is one, for example, in Toronto. Sometimes they have some funding attached to it. So that's definitely a good option. We recommend to all our founders to identify the right incubators and accelerators for them. There's some that are specific per industry, some are specific per individual, basically. So if you are part of a certain community, some are targeted towards women founders, some are towards the LGBTQ2+ community, for example. So historically there was a lot more in the US, but really Toronto is there's pretty much for everyone at this point. Government grants and subsidies, we're pretty fortunate. There's a lot that exist out there. Takes a lot of time, I will be honest. It takes a lot of research and you need to apply for it. I see Sophia nodding. But it can be worthwhile, especially when the options are pretty limited at the beginning. That's a good option. Crowdfunding. So crowdfunding, there's different types. There's reward-based, Kickstarter. I have this magic idea of a product and you can pre-purchase it. Well, it comes with certain risks. There's also crowdfunding, an investment, basically. So just know that it comes with different types. If it doesn't go as planned, well, that can mean that you have to give a bigger share of your company, let's say, to investors, or if you don't meet your payments, that's where it can create some issues. So sometimes there's gray areas on these alternative funding sources. Peer-to-peer lending. So this was started a couple of years ago, and it's really direct investing. So it can be through angels, but most likely it's consumers, it's people on the internet that can invest into your business. So again, you don't always know who's investing into your business. There's often, we call it in banking world, know your clients. So, you know, there were some cases where some malevolent, let's say, investors invested into a company. So always do basically your due diligence on these type of things. It's really important. Microfinancing started a while ago. Really, it's micro loans, as it says. So, you know, it can be as small as $500, $1,000 if you have very specific projects. So, again, if going small and going by small increments is what you want, that can be a good option. And then there's others like invoice financing. The most traditional, debt and equity. So I'll just highlight them. I won't explain it all in details because, you know, it really depends on where the business is at. So debt is usually used further along in the growth journey. So it's not usually in the first thing that you will get, although there's different options that are available even at an early stage. So there's secured term debt. Imagine a loan to finance a building or an equipment. Most tech companies don't have secured term debts because they don't have assets. They have intellectual property, they have clients, they have revenue. So that will fall in the second one, unsecured debt, term debt. That's a way to grow your business without diluting yourself. With equity, you will dilute. You will give part of your company to investors for them to fund your business. So really, at different stages of the life cycle of a business, obviously the risk reduces over time. The interest rate will go down over time also, but you know, you have to be willing and able to have a monthly payment, for example. So it's to keep in mind, the debt versus the equity is really, you know, will change them. So you have revolving debts, like a line of credit. Often banks will take a long time. You need to be established, have a certain reference, or have a high net worth. Usually when you have that, you can access a lot. So line of credit takes certain milestones to reach before you can access one, but it's definitely one of the best tools to fund your growth, hire people, invest into your business, really. Now, equity. Given the scope, I won't go into details, but there's different types. There's SAFEs, there's convertible notes, there's priced equity. Usually you will see that when there's a liquidity event, like when there's a funding round. And when you hear Series A, Series B, that's a priced equity round. So really what we see a lot are SAFEs and convertible notes. That can mean, you know, angel investors investing into your business will be under these two formats. Now, what you need to do when you kind of plan your growth journey, obviously, is plan your burn. Basically, most likely you're going to start with a couple of months or years of burn. You need to know how you're going to fund that. So part of it is going to come from family, from yourself, or from investors. You need to see what mix of debt and equity makes sense. You need to decide how fast you want to grow. If you want to be the next, you know, Facebook, obviously he went to VCs because he had a great product and wanted to get first to the market. A lot of clients, and we don't hear them as much, but are bootstrapped. They don't use VC money, or they use little of it, and they retain more control, and they use debt. So obviously the growth is slower, but that's the path that they selected. So there's different types. When we talk to entrepreneurs, it's really all over the place on their strategies. So there's advantages and less advantages points to each of them. And really what we recommend and what we need actually as lenders is for you to do different scenarios. So when you model your cash flow needs in the future, that's where you need to do different scenarios, especially in a volatile market like we are now. We had companies as early as 6 months ago telling us that they were going to raise a $5 million, $10 million round, and now they're coming back saying, well, actually, it's only like $3 million. So that changes the whole scenario. They need to start from scratch and really look at what options they have in front of them. So my advice is, this is not a one-time thing. You have to do it constantly, make it evolve. It's a live thing. And maybe for early stage businesses, what I would also recommend is make sure that you do it early enough and that you kind of go get those skills. Oftentimes through the journey, there's going to be, questions coming up, and you need to have some of the answers, right? It speaks to your ability to manage a growing business. And that's where sometimes, we have a young founding team member. Well, there's a big potential chance for hiccups to happen. So surround yourself with the right people, with the right advice, build your different models. And I know there's probably some techies here and some people from different horizons, but these financial models and these financial forecasts really, they're not that complex, right? Everything can be learned. So that's the idea. I just wanted to level the playing field. So I think we're ready to go to the panel, or maybe if there's questions on any of this.
Questions from the audience. Happy to take them now, or we can bring up, as we bring up our other panelists and welcome them to the stage. So I should be talking in the connection, but okay, well,
Let's do the
Chad,
panel.
yeah, let's do that. Chad, please join us. Sophia, please join us. We are lucky here today. I'm super loud. And keep that in mind. Oh, my phone. This one, that's on. This one works. Thank you. Thank you. Chad is wearing his, so that makes it easy. Is there an order we need? There is not an order. We are super easygoing here at Créer. And thank you again, Mark, for kicking us off. So I'm going to consider that a little bit of your intro and give you a break. I will ask for our other panelists just to maybe quickly introduce yourself, how you sort of fit into the story that we're looking to tell tonight, how you have had your own entrepreneurial journey or seen some folks go through that journey, and then maybe just something that has kind of brought you to the queer aspect or the queer tech element of our event tonight. So Sophia Stone, can I start with
Homo here? That's what brought me here. Certified actually Homo. So both of my companies are certified LGBT with the CDLCC. I have two companies. One is a consulting firm doing risk work in banks, hot mic, and the other is a tech company. And so about in 2019, I had this idea for a company. I didn't really know how to do tech really, and I needed better guidance. So I did, this is where privilege comes in. I did a Master of Management in Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Smith School of Business. And that kind of led to the foundations of the business and where I'm at now. I guess in terms of the money, the ways that you can get money, everything except for crowdfunding and peer-to-peer loans I've used. So if you have questions about any of them, let me know. And I think it's really important to have this conversation within marginalized communities, especially if you are at the intersection of a bunch of identities, because it's going to be way harder to raise. And so sometimes where you wish you could get equity, it's actually easier to go the debt round and try and de-risk your company as much as possible, because the chances of you fundraising are so much lower until you're sexy.
We think you're sexy. Thanks for joining us, Sophia. Chad, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, Chad Rogers. My day job is owner of a consulting firm as well, co-pricing strategy for a public affairs agency. My business partner and I hold our shareholding in that company, have a small little venture fund called Trout River, and we are members of a collective called Angels. So Gay Angels, Angels started about 8 years ago out of Silicon Valley in New York. The first year Angels was together, they deployed about $11 million of members' money. LGBTQ plus members who gathered together in that venture thing called a special purpose vehicle, pooled their investment and got into early venture investments targeting LGBTQ plus founder suites. But Angels then grew at light speed. My partner and I in business, not in life, got involved midway about 4 years ago, so halfway through. We're a member, we're not a leader in Angels, but a member. So we invest in various things that Angels does, as well as the Angels core operating fund. Angels, to give you an example, so again, that LGBTQ plus dollar looking to do high risk venture investing as individual or accredited investors. In 2021, Angels was the most active VC fund in North America and deployed $750 million on behalf of its members. So what is colloquially referred to as pink dollar is having a real moment coming out of COVID. Now, Angels prioritizes really all early stage companies. So it's no longer just a founder suite that might have an LGBTQ plus member. Now, what Angels does is really deploy money it makes for things like the job board, currently 10,000 or more jobs, so that these startups and portfolio companies have access to talent that comes from our broader community. Angels invests in some fellowships, proactive diversity work to ensure that that founder space is better populated by diverse faces. But more importantly, Angels, when it deploys that dollar in the SPV, a letter comes with it that says, here's what we expect. We expect to see some leadership in your board composition, your senior staff composition, some commitments into how you run yourself as a company. But it's a test. We don't know if it's going to work yet. We haven't really hit up against, we got lots of unicorns that have kind of blown up in the Angels portfolio. There are tests coming. So right now we're working is that, does the Angels name mean anything when it appears on a cap table as we go forward? Angels is a follow-on VC syndicate, meaning they don't lead the round. They're not the ones out leading the raise, nor do they lead the due diligence. But because like many aspects of society, when you're part of a special community, the community helps each other out. So Angels is very good at getting a piece of everything now. So when names you've heard of like Andreessen and Graycroft and Kleiner Perkins are passing around a deal, they're very good at holding back $1 million for Angels on everything, making sure the members get a piece of it. So for me as a member investor, we know in our work that doing good and doing well don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can sometimes be the same. In Angels, one of the reasons I'm a passionate investor in Angels investments is because I see things that no banker in Canada shows me. Because when that deal comes north of the border, normally it goes to 6 family offices. It doesn't go to the broker that the little me deals with. So I get in and get these tiny tastes of really cool early stage venture that normally Canadians don't always get a chance to take a swing at. I'm your normal mediocre cisgendered white dude, but a gay founder in the professional services space, though we're not certified because sadly I'm not the majority owner anymore with Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. But moral of the story, early stage angel and venture investor and entrepreneur.
Awesome. So
Can I say one more thing?
yeah.
Is it on? Okay. I'm also a part of the BDC Tech Fund. So they have been instrumental. So there's also, if you have questions about what it's like to be a founder in I guess it's not a fund, but in the debt side, that is.
Well, and thanks, Sophia. That's perfect. So I'm just going to kind of recap for everybody in the audience, right? So we got representative across kind of what you might see in the landscape, more of the lending, right? Investment style. We've got a founder right in the middle who's experienced a lot on both sides of kind of debt and equity. And then we've got from the venture capital world, if you will, Chad representing kind of that venture capital funding element. So I might actually start, Chad, at your end again and then work our way down. You touched on this a little bit in your preamble, Mark, but I think talk maybe a little bit about, Chad, from a high level, what kinds of funding makes sense for, like, again, more early stage kinds of organizations, and what kind of characteristics would you see in a business or a startup that would really make it kind of interesting or appealing for those venture funds?
Look, I'm not good at math. and I'm not a banker, so all of this is new to me. And if anyone else shares that unnatural fear of complicated math, that suddenly the big spreadsheet comes out and you think, oh my God, I don't understand all the acronyms. I don't understand the difference between a general partner and a venture partner and what these VC people are talking about. I didn't know that that was an acronym. I don't know who Y Combinator is or why I have to keep going to the website or applying to join them. So a couple of things. You have to learn how to fake it. So you've got to know how to fake the deck. You've got to know how to deliver a tight, less than 30 slide deck that uses terms like total addressable market or TAM, right? You've got to explain who potentially buys your product or service. Then you have to go into the fantasy space of modeling your growth for 3 to 5 years on your business that doesn't exist. And if you're not willing to do it, you can't raise money. It's got to fit in a deck. Doesn't even have to be a spreadsheet deck. It doesn't have to be a Word file, but it has to be a sexy, sexy deck. What does that deck have to have in it other than math? It has to have some cool people who agreed to join you maybe as advisors. It has maybe the big brand that any of your early diverse founders or even senior employees ever worked for in their lives, and certainly didn't consent to allowing their corporate logo to be used in your sexy, sexy deck. It's all the pitch on the front end. What kind of money is right for you? Whatever it's going to take to survive. Every bit you give away as a founder is too much. But guess what? Unless you want to be a perfect founder alone in a room with a perfect deck that never went anywhere, you're going to have to give away your baby little pieces at a time. Debt financing. Most of the people in this room, marginalized communities, early startup, not a lot of early money. You're not going to have the option to get debt. No one is interested in loaning you money. Nobody. Maybe public dollars that are willing to do high risk and have some segregated dollars that say these people are not only high risk, they're super high risk because they're also from a marginalized or ethnocultural or identity driven equity seeking community. Maybe we'll give them special high risk money because we're in a great mood this year. Other than that, that's hard. You've got to have cash on the barrelhead or assets or proof for people co-signing for debt. So sadly, dilutive equity is going to be the faster path in early stage rounds for people. Here's my big advice. You've got to find at least one mentor that's been through the venture journey. It's why incubators are actually worth the time, even if they seem obnoxious in a year, because they're going to have in them at least one other person who's run the gamut and made big mistakes, like gave away a company, sold too early, failed and had to pivot, failed and started over. Really smart folks who otherwise look like, bad B school profs, but who will walk you through this is what the terms mean that you have to care about. The reason I say the journey and why you've got to talk to someone about the journey is you've got to figure out, you've got to accept that you're giving away parts of the baby, and you've got to figure out how to do it in the most manageable way, thinking 2 rounds ahead of where you are. So you're in your angel round, you're doing friends and family, you're structuring, choosing, am I using the Y Combinator safe agreement? What are we doing for structured valuation? How are we splitting things up even amongst founders? You got to think about what you're going to look like by the time you get to an early series round. And what is that going to mean? What is dilution going to mean the first time the equity is priced? And then how much more room does it give you? Because what feels like, oh my God, we're going to get $5 million and we're going to get it under this agreement. And then suddenly you're going to realize, oh, we're never going to be able to scale in a successive round, or we've given away too much, or we've completely betrayed all of our early round folks the first time we have to engage solutions. So, and you don't need to take, with the greatest respect of business school is, always a great investment of time. Education is always great. You don't need to stop and do an MBA for this. You need a couple of people who've been through the journey to walk you through the opportunity choice costs you make each time you structure around. And you're always going to give away more than you want to, because that's going to be, unless you are the 1 in 1 million hot unicorn with the sexiest deck that's ever existed, or your name is Adam Newman. And you can simply burn capital. You can literally set fire to $11 billion. And Mark Andreessen, the smartest person in venture investing, will give you 350 million more.
Sophia, I saw you nodding at a couple of Chad's comments there. Like, what resonated with you from your own experience?
It's interesting. I have probably had a bit of a different experience I'm Latin, queer, and a woman. And the stats are
Cheers for
very
me.
good.
Starting ahead.
The stats are very good. And so is business school necessary? No, but what is necessary and what I agree with is you need to equip yourself with as much as you can. And this is why Black women are the most educated people, because nobody is going to really believe you, even if you are the most educated person in the room, but you might as well have those credentials, is how I feel. Because it's just extra weapons. I think that it's a nice idea to have all of this, and I did all of that, except I didn't get funding. And I think that there's a lot of reasons. One, in Canada, we are risk averse, and so the early money isn't really there. And then I think that there is one company that perceives me as a threat, and a lot of the smaller funds have invested in them. And so, and then also I am doing something, everybody thinks they are doing something that's really advanced. I'm actually the only company in the world doing something. We're forecasting supplier risk like they do in the front office, which no one else is doing. And so what that means is there isn't pattern matching. And so I had to go about it a different way. And so I think I agree. And I think if anyone wants resources, venture deals is a really great class to take, to learn for free, to learn about everything that he's saying. And the book, you can find the PDF as well, so that you can have this conversation around like why you need to be careful about what the terms are, even when you're taking money.
If we're doing learning resources, can I also throw out David Horowitz, Ben Horowitz, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Anybody read this one? So he is Andreessen Horowitz, half the most powerful and successful VC collective of our time. He's also like an avid hip hop fan. So every chapter is based on an idea from like hardcore AG 80s hip hop. Look, Horowitz has a lot to answer for, Andreessen has a lot to answer for, but it's a solid read. And every other VC person, if you go meet angel or VC people, has also read the book. So if nothing else, it's great code switch shorthand to use if you're out pitching to those folks. So it's just The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's super readable book.
Yeah. So I want to bring Mark back in just for a minute, because I think what we maybe can refer back to from your intro presentation is like, what can a founder be thinking about? What might they need to prepare if they are going to go down the route for debt lending option?
Mm-hmm. So what you need to understand is debt comes further. It comes further along in your journey. You can't start with debt because there's certain milestones. You need to hit them. You need to repay that loan. So you need to be aware of that. And it doesn't mean that you need to be necessarily profitable. Most of our companies, we get them on the books when they're not profitable, but we see either strong equity players behind, or we see backers that are behind the company that can put in more, or we see that they're getting there. They have either contracts and they'll be able to pay back the loan and keep growing the company. So my advice is, it's not at the early stage, I'll agree with you, Chad, but further along, it's a great option to reduce that dilution. And we have many companies who come to us and they have diluted too fast, too early. They don't have control anymore. So then they come a point where, hey, I don't want to dilute more. I want, let's say further, $500, $1 million. Board won't approve because board is controlled by VCs, by equity players. We've had that multiple times. So when I talk about that balance, sometimes going a bit slower might be the right way.
Can I speak to that? That's what I had to do. I feel like I didn't really have a choice, even though like, you know, I was hustling, doing everything, going through the accelerators. But I did something that investors actually don't like, which is I built a successful company. Well, they say they like it, but they don't like it in professional services. So I built a successful company that could be my runway. And that allowed me, that was my first client as well for the tech company. I separated them because of IP, but it funded me through the pandemic. And it meant that I could build tech when there was a lot of no's. And I think that is, if I could recommend anything, it's de-risk your business and you'll get funding, whether it's revenue or debt. Like you just have to continue to de-risk as much as you can. So for me, it was de-risking my own security, really. Like I had good credit. I didn't want to lose my credit. And so I took micro loans. I had a credit card and I paid it well. And then I was given a line of credit, and that slowly incrementally building that, which allowed me to get BDC funding. And then it allowed me to get money from Microsoft. And so that has been really the only thing that I could have done, because VCs just don't like me, and that's okay. Corporates like me. And so that was kind of my journey, I guess, from, being a marginalized founder, getting a lot of no's and realizing, oh, if I don't de-risk this for myself, I'm not going to have a business in 18 months, or your financial projections mean nothing.
Look, VCs are rapacious. They don't make money by being nice people. And everyone who's ever come through the door has the best solution for their problem that's ever been invented. So they're completely cynical about how good you think, how cute you think your baby is. They want to understand the basic size of the market opportunity. They want to see that you used some verifiable third-party data when you did that market sizing, so that they can go back and look at it and go, not a dumb idea. But VCs take flyers. VCs take high risk, long shot options. Angel investments, even pre-VC, people who did, they're used to the fact that you don't have real business yet. This may be all vaporware in terms of, but they're going to say, what's the merit of the idea? What's the moat around it? What's your play to get to it faster? Why has no one else thought of this? Those are the simple questions you're answering in those decks. What I will say, though, with VCs and their rapaciousness, you've got to engage in their game. You've got to show up where they are. What do I mean by that? For those of you who don't yet own a Patagonia vest, you are going to be legally compelled to purchase one. It is the exact same, usually white or beige grow.
I believe in some bro vest. Is that the technology chat? Thank you.
You know that Patagonia actually has tried to close their supply chain to make sure these people can't buy the vests anymore. But they're completely unsuccessful. There are companies who just go into Patagonias and buy the vests and then re-embroider them because it's so lucrative that people want the Patagucci when you show at these events. So you got to be prepared to deal with not dumb people who are all the same and who come from the same clusters and the same schools. And yeah, they may be objectionable in their narrow view of the world, but they are greedy and they are willing to go high risk. And one of the ways to test whether or not you're able to communicate with them is in your wardrobe. I'm being glib, though. If you'll notice, I didn't wear a vest, but I'm almost in BC wear today. I'm in my Web Summit clothes already. You've got to be able to do the same as you do in a screenwriting pitch. You've got to be able to explain how you're the X for Y. So what in one sentence walking in explains how you're an analog of something else that's wildly successful when they have to go to their general partners meeting and pitch an allocation for you or permission to take a flyer on you. What do I mean the X for Y? I'm the Uber for infertile men. What does that even mean? I don't know, but the X and Y is the best architecture to start with your pick. I am the blank for blank.
I go for supplier performance.
Right. I get that. I can explain that when I'm, but even if it doesn't totally make sense, but it sounds like it makes sense. Right? Yeah, and I'm using like a series of established brands. I'm rooting off of it. I'm demonstrating that it's not so net new that it will never get enough oxygen to scale fast enough to be worth the money. They're used to hearing crazy stuff. What they get tired by is when they give you constructive feedback to say, here is the basic weakness in your pitch, and why I don't want to see a term sheet yet. That's all the valuable, really, really, really expensive consulting you're getting for free. Don't then do the, yeah, but my baby is cuter than all the other babies. Yeah, but you didn't hear how exciting my pitch was. Yeah, but you didn't hear how smart we are. They heard from 15 smart people already today. So that feedback, as much as it feels a little debilitating, and it's often delivered like callously by like a heinous, rapacious asshole, it's super good. If nothing else, just remember, there's also a general dynamic, except in these pitches, in these big sessions, that it's almost always people are cool with recording as a note-taking tool. Or if you're not going to be able, because you're presenting to note-taking, have someone there to do note-taking, capture every bit of that feedback. Because it's all the piece you need to have answered in the deck before you go back to the next one. The last thing I'll say is on pitching, and I learned this frankly in our professional services business on selling. No one likes selling. No one doesn't have a tremendous amount of fear about selling. All success is related to sales. And if you're from a community that isn't hardwired to be accepted in the room you're walking into, the sales part is the part that's going to be in your head and be the wild. They don't want to hear from me. I don't have the standing to do this. You're going to have to get over that. And the only way to get over it is to go through it. So if you have never sold anything, you're going to have to practice going into cold rooms and selling. That's what the pitch is. And I tell young founders that we invest with, literally think about selling a product door to door. Sign up and do Avon and do their course, or Amway, or Toastmasters, all these things that we look down on and think are stupid. What book is in equal publishing, standing, and quantity to the Bible in the English language? Anybody know the most successful book on the King James Bible in the English-speaking language in terms of editions published, quantities published? Dale Carnegie's How to Make Friends and Influence People. If you haven't read it, as much as it's old and stupid, you should read it and you should do it. You should learn how to shake hands. You should learn how to remember people's names. You should learn because it's all selling in this pitch stuff. I've seen pitches that have just incomprehensibly dumb math, but the deck is great and the sales pitch works. And you walk out of the room going, yeah, I want to get in on that. I'm willing to jump in on that. I'm willing to throw a flyer. I'm willing to invite them back and take the term sheet or sign the NDA, because the selling worked. And the selling doesn't always have to come from the same people.
We have a question
Wait.
in the chat coming.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah. Can you read them?
Go?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this came multiple times. It's talking a little bit about what type of companies keep investing.
If you want to repeat, maybe the question is,
Yeah.
what type of companies is BDC investing in? So BDC has two arms. We do debt side, which my team works in, and we have all of the equity side. So for good governance, there's a separation between the two of them. So we pass them all time to time.
Yeah.
We have different funds. We invest in different industry, different life cycles. Our direct investing focuses. We have different funds. We have deep tech fund, for example, for very long-term investments. We have the woman in tech, the new Thrive. You heard $500 million again. So really happy for different types of technology. What you need to remember about VCs, VCs happen a bit further on the equity side. So usually the ticket size will be, the smaller ones will be $1 million and above. So you need to fund it to get there. And then you got to remember also VCs, as Chad said it, will invest in the right companies and the ones that will really skyrocket. So if you don't get funding, it's a probability. it's a higher probability than getting funding. So at the end of the day, you got to remember that when you're working on your pitch, but it brings it back to the market. What's the market that you can go grab? How innovative your solution is? Who's the management team on it? How will they bring it up to that 100 billion dollar in revenue? So there's different ways, but no specific items necessarily in terms of industry.
I'll just add that for angel, for those of you who are going to go for really early money on angels, angel investors want evidence the founder's sticking around. As angel investors know there might be a pivot coming, that you might have to change the idea 3 times. Their bet is squarely on founder or founders. So they want clarity about who's a real founder versus who have you padded and added 2 names so they can claim you also have expertise in these areas. Like they're going to want to know who's doing the work, who's sticking around for 1 to 3 years, who's invested in this heavily. The earlier money you're going for, that angel money, that friends and family money, that's going to be a lot about your CV, but not how smart you are, how good you are, how committed you are to this, and how much time and capacity you're going to have to be committed and into it, probably for 1 to 3 years. So the early stage investment I do is entirely founder. Very proud to say that in a number of our portfolio investments, more out of the tech space than in, we were first checked to founder. And what did I really pay for? I paid for and how smart I knew that founder was, and that they had the potential to do it. And there are people out there who will do the first check, but they've got to be convinced the founder is going to make some realistic choices about the capacity of their life to dedicate themselves wholly to the enterprise for 1 to 3 years and stick around.
Do you have some other from the Zoom? No, Phil?
No.
No, okay. I wanted to tap in a little bit of what you were saying as well, Mark, because I think we've done a really good job of talking about what we need to do as founders, and we're approaching these conversations, be they with lenders or be they with venture capital funding. Is there anything that we can tell the audience to think about? We often hear or read, like, you want to pick a lender, you want to partner with an organization that has similar values to you, right? Like that's going to believe in your cause. Like, can you talk a little bit about how founders can do that as part of their journey, as they're maybe, dare I say, evaluating their options, right? Interviewing their options.
You usually have more options further along the journey. You can agree with me, but what kind of advice? I think it's about, faking it till you make it. It's not a bad one, actually. It's about how you present your company, how you sell it. And that's true for any types of support you're looking for. On the debt side for early stage, we'll usually look at the person behind the company. We want to be sure that they're committed. We'll have a look at their personal credit. We'll have a look at their net worth. We'll probably look at personal guarantees. We want to be sure that that person does not, get on the plane and go on a beach somewhere. So for us, it's part of our analysis as well as the whole business. Usually when you start looking at debt, you have a product, it's selling, you have repeat business. If we have only a couple sales, that's not enough. We wouldn't do you a favor, actually. So that's often how we look at it. For the partner question, same thing, ask questions. We have a lot of companies coming to us because they want to stay in Canada as much as possible. So they want to build a relationship with us. They know all the degree to which we have different solutions at different stages. So same thing on the debt side, you want to build relationships. But you also want to build, especially I would say on the equity side, because these people will be on your board. They will challenge you on every decision that you make. So you want to have people that are in line with your values, with your vision. As Chad said, they're sharks. So are they going to help you become a shark, or to the detriment of your employees and your clients? Well, if that doesn't align, maybe they're not the right players for you.
How did you find that experience, Sophia?
Fortunately, when you're in consulting, it is sales, and it's I guess it depends on your business. I've done both transactional and relational long cycle sales. And so I'm a long cycle salesperson, and it allowed me to build the foundations early on across the board. So I had a conversation today with an investor who reached out to me from Boston, and I'm early for him, and I let him know very early, but he still wanted to take that meeting because of kind of some of the progress that's been happening. And those are the relationships that you get to kind of suss out them. It's kind of like, you know, you're dating someone, it's a marriage. Everyone says that and it's cliche, but it's really true. If they're going to be on your cap table and they're racist or homophobic or any of these things, it's going to undermine you, and it will undermine you. And so I think having those relationships really early on and building them and getting to know people is really important. I did the same thing, I guess, with government funding. So IRAP is notoriously hard to get. I built the relationship with my IRAP person 3 years ago. Every year I've sat down with him, every year it's been a no. Just 2 weeks ago, he finally called me up and said, hey, I think I have some cash. And then I sat down with him, gave him a note of our progress, and he was like, actually, I might have a little bit more because of the progress you've been making. And so that is a relationship that took a lot of like 3 or 4 years, but now I get, you know, a significant amount of capital that doesn't dilute me and that I don't have to pay back. And so it's those, I am the queen of getting government funding if I can, because you have to when you're scrappy. So I just went to Chicago. I got my tax money that covered me going for $5,000, and that allows me to do networking, doing the things. And so I'm constantly looking for those ways and developing those relationships and knowing when to execute on them. And so that has been really critical for knowing about when I can circle back. So I'm getting ready to potentially go for FedDev or something like that. When it was early on. I think having those on both sides, having those relationships so that you can pull the trigger and make the best decision for you, because investors and bankers are not going to make the best decision for you necessarily. And so you need to, again, de-risk for yourself as much as you can.
And on the partner side, if I may add, you need to find people who have the right connections too. So depending on your industry, you want to have someone who knows the industry, who can connect you. Let's say you're in the hardware. Well, you need someone who has, you know, manufacturing contacts and who can introduce you. That's why you're bringing them in your cap table. You want to have their network. So shop for that. Ask the right question. Who have they worked with before? All of these.
I think advisors as well, it's the same thing. So my first advisor, he sits on the board of directors at Wells Fargo. And that's been invaluable. And then I took on someone who'd been through an exit, very successful exit to IBM, became an IBM fellow and an SVP at one of the banks or two of the banks. And then an SVP from another bank, and then now an SVP from BMO. And so those have been relationships. But I think what happens a lot of times is people just pad their deck. My advisors actually sit down with me and have opened their networks. And so those are critical relationships that you also need to have in the industry and targeted, that I would really recommend fostering and building. And it's been worth the equity that I gave up to them because of how valuable they are. And also the names on the deck don't hurt.
You've got to understand, so don't spend a lot of money on professional services early on. I say this as someone who sells professional services. But make sure your incorporation's done right. Incorporate robustly. Don't just do provincial business registration. Why do we incorporate? So that we don't lose our houses, so that there is some wall between our personal finance and our business finances as startup entrepreneurs and founders. So you do have to spend a few bucks when you incorporate, as opposed to just registering. It's totally worth it. Second thing is you got to understand what the SAFE agreement looks like, what it means, what the words mean. Luckily, Y Combinator basically explains it online in simple language that even I can understand. But you got to understand what a SAFE agreement is. Thirdly, you have to understand the basic classes of investor, and it's different province by province, and it's different between Canada and the US. You have to understand what friends and family means. It doesn't actually just mean your friends and your family. You have to understand what an accredited investor is. and what that means when someone makes that declaration and what your limitation is. You have to understand what a qualified investor is. But that's probably not going to be the first problem. If you get friends and family and accredited, that's enough. And then finally, you got to understand what a non-disclosure agreement is, and you got to use it all the time. And you have to remember to be disciplined about getting them signed and keeping them in a folder, keeping them organized by date and person. You shouldn't need to pay a lawyer to do an NDA. There are enough good template NDAs available that you can find online. Just make sure you've actually listed the jurisdiction correctly that you're getting signed. But every time when you're still in stealth, when you're going out and sharing meaningful IP about the deck, even get the NDA countersigned and keep it on file. Don't give everything away too early. NDAs also demonstrate you're serious, that there might be some value in what you're pitching. So just a quick recap. Your incorporation, take it seriously of your business, do it right the first time so you don't have to go back and fix it. Understand how a safe agreement works, understand what the words mean. Go onto the OSC website, learn the basics on retail investing or what a marketed security is. And if you're at a raising, they've got lots of consumer resources to understand how you do a friends and family raise or what an accredited investor is, what paperwork required is. And then finally, an NDA. Have an NDA and use it all the time. And don't let that little hesitation of, oh, these are really fancy people. They never do something bad to me. They never, if you believe your idea and your deck is worth anything, protect the baby. You wouldn't leave the baby at home alone unsupervised with the stove lit, right? So don't just take anyone's word for it. Yeah. Get the NDA done, get it signed, get it filed, be super conscientious about that.
I would include an IP clause in that as well. If you have IP and patents, you'll get some pushback. Investors don't sign them, but 100% everyone will screw you for money.
Wow.
Everyone.
Well, the last thing on my good hygiene is everybody here on LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn is weird, growing up Facebook for losers. You don't actually exist in the commercial universe if you're not on LinkedIn. If you're searched for on LinkedIn and they can't find you, you don't exist as a human or a business, or you're not serious. Just because you have an awesome Instagram of your logo and some weird animation you made, that's not where grown-ups invest in things. LinkedIn is. So if you don't have a cleaned up, but your personal and your professional LinkedIn has to be cleaned up and ready for prime time, because it's the Google when you're going out and pitching that everyone else is going to use.
So I like that as kind of a slide into our wrap up chat as like maybe a final thought, tidying up LinkedIn and having something that's like really reputable from a business standpoint. Sophia, what might you leave for some parting comments for our audience?
I think it's really important to remember. I think that there's two classes of VC. There are the white dudes in Silicon Valley that went to Stanford that will sneeze and get $4 million in a pre-seed, pre-product. And then there's the rest of us who actually have to show market fit and have to get to market fit. That's your big goal, is get to market fit the fastest way possible. And by de-risking it as much as possible. And so I think it's really important to remember also, if you're out there hustling and it's a lot of no's and you are a part of a marginalized community, that you're not alone and it sucks. And chances are they're not pattern matching. And so I think it's really important to believe in what you're doing so much that you can get kicked in the teeth and stand up again, because it's really hard to be a marginalized founder. And the statistics are there. Like, we're not moving the dial at all, even though we talk about it, even though we have a little bit bigger funds that are specialized for certain communities, but it's actually not moving the dial. And as we go into a lot of fear that's happening in the market right now, there's still a lot of powder out there, but it's being gated. And we're going to be the first to see that. And so what that means is you need to even more de-risk what you're doing as much as possible to kind of stay for the long haul, because I think I'm hoping that it'll loosen up next year because there is so much powder that was deployed, but it doesn't look good. The good news is it's much, I think it's at the higher end, but that will hit the low end. So I think that a lot of it is right sizing, in my opinion, of valuations. And so as marginalized people, we already are devalued. And so I don't know that that's going to impact as much, but I do think it's really important to be kind of cognizant of those two tiers of raising and just kind of how much more it takes to be a part of marginalized groups.
Mark, what do you say?
We've talked a lot about the struggles, the challenges, the difficulties, but I also want to say that entrepreneurship, well, from what I see in all of our clients, there's a wonderful journey. So
I wouldn't do anything else. This is the only thing I can do.
So if there's challenges, it's not easy, it's tough, you need to keep at it, but it's very rewarding. Every time I meet some of our clients, they're tech founders, they're ambitious, they want to solve issues, they want to, save the world, and it's wonderful. So it's an easy path, but go to it.
Everybody sign up for BetaKit, Canada's kind of startup discussion email list, tracks all the big announcements and big stories in the Canadian startup space, jobs. So BetaKit, if you're not following it, open up your phone now, sign up for it, get the Sunday Night BetaKit email. If you're not reading PitchBook, try and sign up and look at PitchBook. PitchBook probably would have the best macro data on the space and the category you're in for free at any given time. That they also sell really high-end research, but PitchBook has a ton of valuable stuff for free. They're also brilliant to model your own materials on, because PitchBook's really best in class in how they present analysis about early stage. And even just to learn how to talk the language, I find they're a great source. And then if you want the big, the giant version of BetaKit in the US or for all of North American world, TechCrunch and Crunchbase. If you're not following Crunchbase and looking on folks using that as a database to navigate, it's a pretty easy tool at the very least. Again, learn how to speak it's an easy way to learn how to speak the language and code switch when you're pitching to the person who's on the other end of on the other side of the table.
I would say also, is it not work? Oh, there it goes. Have a list of investors, like just have a spreadsheet of investors and their funds and all the information at the stages so that you can keep track of people and what's going on. So have your own CRM for investors as well.
Lots of tips, lots of real world advice. So please stick around, have another cocktail, engage with our panelists of speakers. Thank you so much, Mark, Sophia, Chad, joining us tonight. Thanks everybody in the virtual room and everybody in the real life room. Really appreciate you coming out to join us. And like I said, please stick around, have a cocktail and engage with our panelists. Sorry, now Phil, one more thing.
Yeah, you want to just get close?
Yes, please. Thank you all. A round of applause.
Thank you. Okay, that's good. Before we go out and everyone want to drink and some food, we at the end of every event we do community announcements. So if anyone here, don't be shy. If you have any announcement, if you're looking for a job, looking for investment, whatever need or ask you have from the community, this is a space we create for the community. You can come and do it here. It's your opportunity. You have 45 seconds to do it. I know everyone is always very nervous and they have to be like a person to come first and then other people come, but I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it. 30 seconds. I know you all have needs. Yeah. Great.
We are about to hire another developer. So if there are any developers who are Nest, Next, GraphQL, Azure, those kind of, that's the stack we're using. Let me know, have a conversation with me.
Awesome, great, thank you. Great, anyone else, any needs? Are you looking for money, looking for a job, looking to give away a job, looking to give some money? Give some money. Awesome, well, if you don't have anything, thank you again for our panelists. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. We have some drinks and food and we'll network and we'll be wrapping up in about 20 minutes. So thank you again for coming.